Miranda Devine is the journalist from the New York Post who should have won a Pulitzer Prize for her incredible investigative work on the Hunter Biden laptop. Instead of winning a Pulitzer Prize, instead, Miranda Devine was called a Russian asset, a propagandist, a tool of Vladimir Putin's propaganda machine. And her story was censored not only on social media platforms like Twitter and Facebook, but also anybody who shared that story was also censored, in some cases blocked, and even their accounts were suspended from those social media platforms. And of course, all the broadcast networks, the cable networks, other news outlets, they refused to even report on the story that she broke until years later. Why? Well, because the story showed the corruption of Hunter Biden, the son of Joe Biden, and the story broke just a few weeks before the 2020 presidential election. And all those defenders of free speech and a free press, well, they had an election to win. So Miranda Devine had to be silenced. Well, let's go to Miranda Devine's Twitter feed right now, because she unfolded yesterday some incredible findings in a Justice Department filing in the Hunter Biden affair. Let's start with this piece of evidence. The Justice Department showed specifically that they found traces of cocaine in the pouch where Hunter Biden kept that gun that he illegally obtained. By the way, just to remind everybody, Hunter Biden, the son of the President of the United States, is a crackhead whoremonger and corrupt operator who is right now under multiple criminal investigations. Now, that was true in October of 2020 when this story first broke. But if we said that at the time, we would be silenced. We would be ostracized. Our stories would be demonetized and deplatformed. Well, because at that time, they really, really needed Donald Trump to lose the presidential election. Right now, it's January of 2024. We're still 11 months away from the election, or 10 months away. So apparently it's okay for us to say it for now. Here's the court filing that specifically says, and the important line is underlined, to be clear, investigators literally found drugs on the pouch where the defendant had kept his gun. Investigators found drugs on the pouch where Hunter Biden kept his gun. And the Justice Department and David Weiss, the man who is now supposedly the special investigator into the Hunter Biden affair, David Weiss in the Justice Department was this close away from handing Hunter Biden a sweetheart deal where he wouldn't have any prison time, where he could plea out and have full immunity from any other charges. In July, they were this close from that. Now, we'll get to that aspect of it in just a moment, but let's go all the way back to the beginning of Miranda Devine's breakdown here from yesterday, because that's just scratching the surface. The cocaine part of this is just scratching the surface. Miranda Devine writes, in a new court filing today, the Justice Department confirms Hunter Biden's laptop is real, that he left it at a computer store, and that the contents matched what they obtained from a search warrant of his cloud. Now, let's pause there for a second, because this is blockbuster. Miranda Devine's story about the Hunter Biden laptop specifically had to do with her possession of, through a source, a possession of the hard drive that had been handed over to a computer repair shop, right? We know that story. Hunter Biden dropped off his laptop to a computer repair store in Delaware, never came back to pick it up, never paid for the repairs, by the way. The owner of that store turned the laptop over to the FBI, but first made a mirror copy of the drive, just in case the FBI didn't do anything with it. And months later, since the FBI didn't do anything with it, that source, that whistleblower that owned the store in Delaware, he handed it over. Eventually, he handed it over to Rudy Giuliani, and it ended up in the hands of the New York Post and Miranda Devine. It was that hard drive that became the genesis of the New York Post story in October that would have absolutely upended the presidential election. It would have handed Joe Biden defeat that he deserved, because that laptop had all of the evidence right now, the emails that showed that he was the big guy and he was getting a cut of the money that Hunter Biden was making with Ukraine interests and Russian interests and Kazakhstan interests and Chinese interests. That's what Miranda Devine's story was. Understand something. The Justice Department already had all that information. Let me read this line again. The DOJ confirms Hunter Biden's laptop is real. He left it at a computer store, and the contents match what they obtained from a search warrant of his iCloud. You see, the Justice Department, already investigating Hunter Biden, had a search warrant for all of his emails that were kept on the cloud. When they got the actual laptop, all they did was compare it to the information they already had obtained through a search warrant, and they confirmed that it was legit. Why is that important? It's important for multiple reasons. The first and most important was that Hunter Biden was so corrupt and so obviously involved in illegal activities that well before they even had the laptop from this whistleblower from the Apple store, the DOJ, the FBI, they had already obtained this information because they were hot in his trail in 2019. But secondly, and frankly, I think most importantly, when it came time for the presidential election and this story broke, and the Biden campaign trotted out 50 former intelligence community officials to swear up and down that this thing wasn't real. This laptop was a fraud. This laptop was just a product of propaganda from Vladimir Putin and the Russians. The DOJ knew that that was a lie. They knew that this wasn't a product of Russian propagandists. They knew the Hunter Biden laptop was not Russian interference, and they said nothing. They shut their mouths. They let this entire thing play out. They let the New York Post get censored and deleted. They let the First Amendment be squashed and put through a shredder by the Justice Department, by the FBI. Don't forget, it was members of the FBI who worked with Twitter at the time to censor accounts that were sharing this laptop story. Even though the FBI and the Justice Department knew at that very moment that it was real, that it was legit, and it wasn't Russian interference. And yet they said nothing. They said nothing. While Miranda Devine's rights were infringed, the New York Post rights were infringed, but most importantly, your rights, your First Amendment rights. Because understand something. When you shared the story from the New York Post, you were censored. Your account was blocked. And sometimes where you were suspended from these social media platforms. But there's another level to the First Amendment. See, the First Amendment, when Alexander Hamilton and James Madison and the Constitutional Convention back in the 1780s, when they were crafting the Bill of Rights, when they were coming up with the First Amendment and the freedom of speech and freedom of the press, it wasn't for reporters. Can I say that again? Freedom of the press isn't about protecting reporters. It's about protecting you. It's not about reporters having the right to report. It's about you, the American citizen, having the right to unfettered information. Alexander Hamilton and James Madison and George Washington and the entire Continental Congress, when they were contemplating the Constitution and when they put forth the Bill of Rights, it wasn't about protecting Jim Acosta's rights. It was about you, the American citizen, having a free, unfettered access to news and information without the government intervening and censoring it and silencing and deciding what information you're allowed to have and what information you're not allowed to have. When the FBI and the Justice Department stood by quietly as this story was kept from you, they were infringing on your First Amendment rights. And let's not forget this incredibly important moment during the presidential debate when Donald Trump raised this issue to the American people.
50 former national intelligence folks who said that what he's accusing me of is a Russian plan. They have said that this has all the 5 former heads of the CIA, both parties, say what he's saying is a bunch of garbage.
This is classic Trump. We have 4 days left, and all of a sudden there's a laptop. There's overwhelming evidence that from the intelligence community that the Russians are engaged.
I still think that the stories from the fall about your son Hunter were Russian disinformation at a smear campaign, like you said.
Yes. I know you'd ask it. I have no response. Another smear campaign. It's the last-ditch effort in this desperate campaign to smear me and my family. The vast majority of the intelligence people have come out and said there's no basis at all.
Yeah, no basis at all. It's a lie. It's all Russian disinformation. Classic Trump. This is what he does. He doesn't just lie and do Oppo research, but he's in the back pocket of Vladimir Putin and the Russians. That's what Joe Biden said to deflect against this story and win your vote. And it worked. And the FBI and the Justice Department now, based on this court filing, they knew. They knew and they said nothing. In fact, frankly, they actively covered up the truth. Your FBI, your Justice Department actively covered up the truth because they worked on a daily basis with meetings with executives at Twitter to flag problematic posts on that platform, and Twitter dutifully saluted and deleted those posts and suspended the accounts. So let's go back to Miranda Devine here. As she says, don't hold your breath for a retraction from Joe Biden. It's a Russian plan. The Dirty 51, that would be the 51 former members of the intelligence community who claimed this was a Russian plan. Or myriad dishonest media operatives, they blamed Russia, and the Bidens knew it was Hunter. So did the FBI. Hunter also blamed Russia when he was caught using adultery site Ashley Madison. All right, so here's the actual court filing. And again, this is the Justice Department filing this filing this document in open court. Investigators later came into possession of the defendant's Apple MacBook Pro, which he had left at a computer store. Search warrant was also obtained for his laptop, and the results of the search were largely duplicative of information investigators had already obtained. So in other words, to them, the laptop was not actually a big breaking revelation because they already obtained this information from Apple via a search warrant. They knew. They knew all along, and they lied, and they covered it up. Miranda Devine continues. Special counsel David Weiss's prosecutor, Leo Wise, has been busy with multiple filings, including new evidence about the alleged illegal gun purchase while addicted to crack cocaine, in which he is being prosecuted in Delaware after his sweetheart plea deal fell apart. Now, that's where we found the evidence that there was cocaine in the pouch where he kept this gun. Now, they obtained the trace amounts of cocaine, the FBI did, after unsealing this evidence. The gun was sealed up for evidence in 2018. That's how far back this goes. In 2018, Hunter Biden was high on crack. This is a year before his dad announces he's running for president. And he was high on crack and obtained a gun illegally, lied on the federal form to obtain that gun illegally. The cops get the gun, they seal it. Last year in 2023, the investigators got that evidence, unsealed it, and found the traces of cocaine. And the Justice Department was still ready to give him a sweetheart deal. Give him a deal that you would have never gotten for illegally obtaining a gun while on crack. And by the way, not for nothing. Every time there's a tragic gun crime in this country, Joe Biden and his party and the media immediately jump up and down and scream that they want more gun laws, more gun laws, more gun laws. And many of us sit back and say the only people who follow gun laws are law-abiding citizens. I mean, maybe it's me, but generally speaking, if somebody is willing to break the law that is already on the books against, murder or assault with a deadly weapon or armed robbery, if you're already willing to break the law pertaining to utilizing a gun in a criminal fashion, you're probably willing to break a law against obtaining that gun in the first place. I don't know, like, the law against obtaining a gun if you're addicted to crack cocaine. But Joe Biden, he's the first one as a senator for 120 years, jumping up there saying, we need more gun laws to get these guns out of the hands of criminals. Dude, the criminal's in your own home right now. It's your son. And he broke that law and lied on the forum. And, of course, everybody knows it. All right, Miranda Devine continues. More evidence presented by the DOJ. On October 13th, 2018 and October 14th, 2018, the day after and 2 days after he purchased the firearm, Hunter said in a text message that he was meeting a drug dealer and sleeping in a car smoking crack. They had this evidence. They had the trace amounts of cocaine in the pouch where he kept his gun. They had text messages that he sent saying that he was meeting with a drug dealer and sleeping in a car smoking crack the day after and 2 days after he obtained this gun. And yet here we are, 2024, and this guy still hasn't gone to jail for illegal possession of a firearm. And again, the investigators, what we started with here, literally found drugs on the pouch where the defendant had kept his gun. Also, Leo Wise, the prosecutor now, who is taking up the case after they were willing to give him walking papers back in July, summarizes the allegations against Hunter Biden for lying on a gun purchase form when he was addicted to crack cocaine. It's all in these court filings. And Miranda Devine finishes here properly by giving credit to the whistleblowers. None of this would have come to light. The plea deal would have gone through. Hunter Biden would have had immunity July of last year, and the Oversight Committee would have had nothing to work with now with Hunter Biden if it weren't for Gary Shapley and Joseph Ziegler. They were IRS whistleblowers. They blew the whistle. No one from the FBI has blown the whistle on this. No one from the Justice Department has blown the whistle. There is a clear and palpable cover-up and obstruction of justice at the highest levels of this government, of this Biden administration. And the only people brave enough to step forward and say, yeah, this is wrong, are these two men, Gary Shapley and Joseph Ziegler for the IRS. If they hadn't courageously stepped forward, Hunter Biden would be 100% free with immunity today. With immunity. That's a huge story. And again, I want to praise Miranda Devine, who, as I mentioned, deserves the Pulitzer Prize. But honestly, at this point, if the Pulitzer Committee came and said, hey, Miranda, we want to give it to you, knowing her, she'd probably say, screw you people. Because as long as you continue to give Pulitzer Prizes to the Washington Post and CNN for Russian collusion stories, I don't want to be a part of that club. God bless you, Miranda Devine and the New York Post, for great reporting, real reporting. The kind of reporting James Madison and Alexander Hamilton had in mind when they helped craft that First Amendment. All right, that story is still developing, by the way. Hunter Biden hopefully will be behind bars before this upcoming presidential election. Took many years, but it looks like the truth is finally coming out.